can you just set a baseline expectation as to what we can reasonably assume is going to come out tangible from this summit between Trump and Xi?
Thanks. Yeah, it's great to be here. And I'll say, I think the symbolism of this trip is really important. Remember, the last time that President Trump went to China, it was 2017. A lot has happened in the relationship since then, whether it's trade and technology confrontation, COVID, right, the war in Ukraine, and now in the Strait of Hormuz. So much has happened in the relationship, and the relationship is now really framed around a strategic competition, whereas before, the relationship was thought of much more in the sense of, mutual benefit and win-win. So I think the symbolism of him going right now is itself a major signal that despite tension in the relationship, the open lines of communication remain between the leaders. On the substance, the White House has been managing expectations quite a bit. Everything out of the White House signals that they want to keep expectations rather low for any particular deliverables. They are talking about deliverables around agriculture, aircraft, maybe in some other discrete sectors, but they really want to focus the attention on the more symbolic deliverable around a potential board of trade that might be announced.
Speaking of symbolism, it was noteworthy to see this list of corporate executives joining the president on a trip to China, not including Jensen Huang. You mentioned some of the water under the bridge since this last visit. There's been an enormous debate about export controls when it comes to high-end chips, those that are made by NVIDIA. And we've heard a lot of on-again, off-again talks about what China should and should not be allowed to buy. Is the idea that we're saving the best for last, or we have to have one meeting before we get to the real issue at hand? Why wouldn't Wang be in this massive group of executives?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I think the administration has signaled that with this concept of a board of trade, they really want to be able to discuss non-strategic sectors, areas where their national securities are not front and center, but where the two countries can continue to trade and even expand trade. And they're looking at things like pharmaceuticals, but also aircraft, agriculture. And in those areas, I think they're also looking at chips, but not in the advanced space, right? So you're seeing other CEOs go from other chip companies, but that are not at that sort of, in that particular area. And I think that's an intentional signal that those issues are not on the table for this discussion.
I'd like to quickly bring our audience's attention to some headlines that just crossed the terminal. An appeals court has halted the order from last week that came from the Court of International Trade, declaring the president's new Section 122 tariffs unlawful. Of course, this was the 10% balance of payments tariffs he implemented after the Supreme Court struck down his IEEPA tariffs. The Court of International Trade last week has said those were unlawful, but an appeals court again has halted that order for now. They're weighing a bid for a longer pause on that. But what position does this put President Trump in going to talks with China that are going to be at least in some part about trade? Why would China credibly believe that this is a lever that the president can still pull without massive legal challenges?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think a lot of people are pointing to this as showing that the president is going in with a weakened hand. But I would say actually quite the opposite. Section 301 is actually the main tool that has been used to impose tariffs on China in the past. In fact, during the president's first term, there were several rounds of tariffs imposed on China using Section 301. I lived through that when I was, a representative to China. I had many sleepless nights waking up to, another announcement of tariffs on China, which the president was able to accomplish through Section 301. And so I mention this because whatever happens on Section 122, it's basically irrelevant because the president can still use Section 301 to impose tariffs. And they have shown that there are a number of different investigations in place that they can use Section 301 to accomplish that in pretty short order.
So give our audience a sense of how to judge the success of this trip and what you're going to be looking for, particularly when it comes to dealing with China. There's this battle of the communiques. Who can get to the reporters first? Is there going to be a readout? We haven't seen an official White House readout that was not a Truth Social post, I think maybe in this entire second term, Kayleigh. A lot of traditions like that kind of go out the window, but this is sometimes, the battle of the PR machines. at work here. What should the White House be prepared for?
Yeah, no, I think that for the president, going in and just having this meeting itself and showing that there are some benefits that come from the stability that has been reached is the goal. Whether or not there are big numbers to be announced, I think he would like to see some major deliverables with big numbers attached. But I think that we all need to manage our expectations. And I think we also need to realize that in the past, including when he went in 2017, the United States was really pushing China to make fundamental changes to its economy, really take on a more market-based approach and address longstanding trade concerns. We're not trying to do that anymore. Basically, the United States, through successive administrations, including the last one, has realized we're not going to be able to push China to take on those sort of bigger structural issues. And so instead, what we're really looking to do is just manage those disruptions. We can't fix it, but we're going to manage it. And so that's why I think a successful trip looks like, frankly, that they're just managing this relationship well without the United States really giving over too much under Chinese pressure.
Well, and it's one thing for the U.S. To manage its own relationship with China, but how much is that complicated by the relationships China has with other countries who may be pushed even more toward China due to some U.S. policies under this administration?
Yeah, I think that the administration and the way that it's approached tariffs and other issues has in many ways alienated a lot of the allies that really the United States needs on board to pressure China, because the U.S. can't do it alone, right? It's going to require the help of partners and allies. I thought it was very important symbolically that Secretary Bessent is going to Japan before he arrives in Beijing. I don't think that's an accident. I think it's a very strong signal that our allies in Asia are very key to our relationship with China.